In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I made $468,000 in 2 hours without getting on a single sales call, without running any ads, and without having a big personal brand. This is an absolutely banger, so let's just dive straight into it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just break down the numbers. I know some of you are going to be asking. And so I have a 13K a month high ticket offer for e-commerce brands that want to install AI powered digital marketing into their businesses. It has a 12-month minimum contract. Okay, so that gives us 156K. And I sold three of these in 2 hours for 460K in revenue. Okay, so that's the breakdown. Pretty simple. 13K a month offer, 12-month minimum contract, sold three of those in 2 hours. Now, the challenge with high ticket is something I call the certainty gap. So you've got your prospect on the left, and the difference between a no and a yes, because that's where you got your client on the right, the difference between those two is how certain that they are that you can solve their problem. Now, what's been happening over the last few years is that gap, that certainty gap, keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. People are less certain that you can solve their problems because of things like AI, lots of other bad coaches. People are just generally more skeptical. And so taking them from a no to yes, it's becoming a wider gap. And so what are the ways, what's some of the ways that people try and solve this, that close that certainty gap to get someone from a no to yes? And the typical industry standard way is through a sales call, right? You've probably seen a dozen people teach this. When you get in front of a prospect, you get them onto a sales call, diagnose their problem, build some rapport, demonstrate, show your solution, handle their objections, and then turn them into a client. Now, I've got lots of other videos on my channels that really break down why I'm not a big fan of sales calls and why I don't use them. But the biggest problem, the biggest challenge with sales calls is that it is a one-to-one medium, meaning that you are only able to sell to one person at a time. And that takes up your time. It requires skill. But you have to bring your sales team. You got to have your sales team to do it. So that's my biggest issue with it. And everything you're going to learn from me, my entire philosophy is built around leverage, maximizing the ROI on your time. When I say leverage, what that means is that you get the most bang for your buck from your time. The time and effort you put in, you get the maximum out of it. And sales calls don't do that because you have to schedule time to speak to the person. They've got to schedule time to speak to this person. You've got to show up. You've got to be on you got to be on your game. And in that 45 minutes, what's the best thing that's going to happen? You get one client. So what I've been doing over the last few years is moving to what I call one to many high ticket sales. Okay. And so one to many is when you get on a webinar or you get on a workshop and you pitch your high ticket offer to many people at once, as opposed to just doing it to one person at once. Now, historically, most people have only sold one to many for low ticket stuff and stuff like under $1,000. Because what you're trying to do on a one to many presentation is get them to buy on the presentation. And most people just don't believe that you can sell high ticket consistently on a webinar. But it all comes down to how you actually structure the webinar. So if you imagine this is your webinar, okay? Okay. And zero, and let's just call it 2 hours. You are going to have 1 hour for teaching, and then you're gonna have 2 hours for teaching, and then you're gonna have 1 hour for Q&A. What most people do with their webinars is that they don't pitch their offer until around here. And that is okay for a low ticket offer. That's okay for a low ticket webinar. But when you're doing high ticket, you have to pitch more often. And the reason why people don't get results selling high ticket on a webinar is because they typically leave their pitch all the way to the end. I'll give you an analogy to try and illustrate this. I used to sell digital products in the men's self-help and dating niche. And one of our products was about helping guys have an amazing date. Like, stay with me here, guys. The problem these guys were having is that they were going on dates with girls. They'd get to the end of the day, they try and kiss her, and the girl wouldn't want to kiss them. Or they try and kiss her, and it became this really awkward thing. And so the entire philosophy was like, look, you can't go on a date, sit across from a girl, not touch her the entire night, a few hours later, then try and kiss her. It's just not going to be, it's not going to work. She's not going to feel comfortable doing it. And so what we taught the guys was like, hey, get her comfortable touching you, like throughout the date. Sit next to her instead of sitting opposite her. Hug her when you first see her. Put your hand on her shoulder, maybe when she says something funny. Brush something out of her hair. Whatever it is, slowly escalate your touches with her as long as she's comfortable. Because, hey, if you try and give her a hug and she doesn't want to give you a hug, well, then there's no point in trying to kiss her at the end of the night. You know it's not going to go anywhere. She's not really into you. But the point was, by making her comfortable touching you, When it came to the time to actually close the deal, give her a kiss at the end of the night, she was comfortable with that, and it was much more likely to happen. This is the same thing with teaching or selling high ticket through a one-to-many presentation. You have to put your pitch in multiple places throughout the webinar in a very like strategic type of way, but you put your pitch in multiple places because what that does is it conditions your audience that hey, something is coming, and so that way, by the time they get to your actual big pitch, your big reveal where you really like, do the close, they've already become comfortable with you pitching and you make a lot more sales that way. And so that's like the big change if you are trying to sell something high ticket like I was with a one-to-many presentation. You're trying to do it directly on the presentation as opposed to doing it in a sales call. And so there really are two types of one-to-many presentation. We've got free masterclasses, webinars, and we've got paid workshops. I just want to break down real quick the differences between the two so you can decide which one you want to take. So with free, because there's no charge, it's a lot easier to fill. Okay. You get more people, but the biggest problem is consumption. Actually, there's two problems: consumption and quality. And what I mean by quality is that, well, let me do consumption first. Consumption, because people didn't pay for it, there a lot fewer people will get to the end of the webinar. Like a lot of people won't show up. A lot of people will just sign up because they're looking for something free and they won't show up. And even if they do get on a webinar, you're not going to have a really good rate of people consuming the entire thing and getting to your pitch. And then with quality, because it's free, if you are targeting wealthy people or a B2B market, those people don't have time, right? They don't have time to sit on a 2-hour webinar that they haven't paid for. So you're typically going to get people who have time, and people who have time typically have less money, less resources. And so free webinars are better if you are going after a B2C market and you are comfortable with having more volume, but having slightly less qualified people on the actual webinar. Versus paid, where the pros of paid is that you get paid up front, which is great. So you basically get paid twice. You get paid to do the webinar, and then you actually get paid at the end of it. You also get a higher quality of person. You get better consumption, okay? And you get better conversion rate. So those are all pretty good things, right? You get paid upfront, get a higher quality of individual, you get better consumption rate, and you get a better conversion rate. But the biggest downside to this is low volume and it needs skill. Because think about it, you are basically trying to sell the workshop before someone even gets there. So you need to have the skills in marketing and copywriting to be able to sell it. And then a lot fewer people are going to buy it depending on the price. So I highly recommend ditching the sales calls, or at the very least adding a one-to-many element to your selling so that you can take potentials, take prospects and convert them into your high ticket offers without having to spend time on sales calls. You can do this where, let's say you get 20 to 30 people on the presentation, you can close 2 or 3 of them into your high ticket offer, right? That's how I got $468,000. I only closed 3 people, right? But I would have had to do each of those 3 calls. Well, I'd have to do a lot more calls because the conversion rate on the calls is only about 30%. So I'd have to do 9 calls to get 3 clients. Whereas this, I just did one-to-many presentation. It actually built my authority because when you are speaking to a crowd of people, even on a webinar or on a live masterclass, it raises your status, right? And when it raises your status, people look at you as the authority. That's a very different environment to you being on a call with someone one-to-one where you've got to do a lot more. You got to do a lot more theatrics, right? Essentially to raise your ability, to raise your status in their eyes for them to say, yeah, this is the person I want to lead me. So the question becomes, which one do you use? Free versus paid. And my recommendation to you, and this is what I do, it really depends on your audience. Whenever I'm selling to people that are a little bit more advanced or I'm selling a B2B offer, I use a paid workshop. And so if the example that I showed you guys earlier, where I made the 468K in 2 hours, that was for a B2B offer. But that's really the distinction. Like it doesn't matter whether you've got 100,000 followers or you've got 2,000 followers or 100 followers. Which one you pick really depends on your audience. Obviously, if you're starting out, you don't quite feel comfortable with a paid workshop, cool, that's all right. Right? Go with the free option. But once you're comfortable either way, it just depends on your audience. Beginner audiences, B2C offers, free webinar. B2B offers, more advanced people, paid webinar, right? That's the distinction you want to make. So whenever you're ready, I'm hosting a live class where I'll take you through this entire process of packaging a high ticket digital product and then selling it one-to-many instead of using sales calls. Link is in the description. Click it, register for the upcoming class. My name's Shane Gregory. God bless, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.